Welcome tonight to Our Votes Matter. And I hope that you've enjoyed listening to the hashtag BLM playlist from RTP NSBE. So my name is Dr. Tony Arnold McFarland, and I bring you greetings tonight from RTP NSBE. I will say that I'm just kind of starting out. I am having some internet connection issues, and I see a few other people have dropped in and out. But we will move forward and do the best we can with what we've got, because that's what we're used to doing. So welcome to our call tonight, and I am going to just kind of let everybody know that what we're going to cover tonight is very important. It is a topic that we don't get to talk about often. We only really come together to talk about voting when it's time to vote, and to talk about how important it is when it's time to vote. But I do want us to take this time and learn something about voting as well. We will talk, we will have some dialogue, we do have some special guests, and there's still a few people dropping in. So we might run a little longer than anticipated because I want to make sure we have time for everybody to get their questions in. But in the interim, let me go ahead and get my presentation started. And you guys let me know when you are able to see that. Let me get my screen share going here. Our topic tonight, Our Votes Matter. This week we are focusing on, with RTP NSBE, Awareness Month, and kicking that off with tonight's session, Our Votes Matter. From protests to progress and social justice equity. So what I want people to walk away with tonight is an understanding of how our votes actually count, and how the Electoral College works, for one. But also, if you have any questions about the voting process, we have myself and other individuals who are involved with voting and elections and advocacy, and hopefully answer that for you. But we also want to make sure that everyone has a call to action. Everyone has a plan, and will be able to answer a call to action after this webinar. You will know what to do next, how to stay involved, and you'll be able to make sure that what we experienced this summer was not just a moment, but we actually will be able to take our anguish and put that to action, and our anxieties, and turn that into action as well, and go from protest to progress in the various disparities that we've seen in our communities. So we are RTP NSBE, the Research Triangle Professionals Chapter, and I will also like to see if Tony is on the call. He is the co-host for me tonight from the Charlotte chapter. Tony, are you on the call?
Hey, good afternoon, good evening. I am on as well.
Awesome. So we are glad to have the Charlotte Professional Chapter with us here tonight. And because we are both professional chapters of the National Society of Black Engineers here in North Carolina, we wanted to make sure we focused on the needs and concerns of the Black community and people of color in North Carolina, for sure. This is a nonpartisan webinar. However, we do want to make sure that we are addressing the needs that are important to us. And like I said earlier, we are observing Awareness Month at RTP NSBE, and there are other activities taking place. So tonight, and then on the 8th, there is an event taking place on breast cancer health. And then on the 9th, college and career night. And we'll talk more about that before we end the call. So if you are not familiar with the National Society of Black Engineers, we were founded in 1975 at Purdue University. And why were we founded? Black freshman engineering students at Purdue University was 80%. And they wanted to do something about that, and they did. They started a movement, and they were able to connect with students at other universities, Black students at other universities. They reached out to the deans of the engineering schools, and recognized that this was not just a Purdue University issue. This was something that was going on at predominantly white institutions across the United States. Eventually, they had a conference, and they established the National Society of Black Engineers, and here we are today. And as you can see on the right, those are the founders there. And the photo at the bottom is actually something that's on our website today, nsbe.org, the national site. And they started the movement for Black engineers out of a call for justice and equity in education. But today, we have expanded that mission into other areas. And I'm going to ask Tony if he could read this mission for us. If we were in person, we would ask everyone to stand and we would read this together. But as our co-host tonight, I'm going to ask Tony if he could just read the NSBE mission for everyone.
Yes, our mission is to increase the number of culturally responsible Black engineers who excel academically, succeed professionally, and positively impact the community.
Thank you, Tony. And you see at the bottom, there's a goal to graduate 10,000 Black engineers per year by 2025. So what we are working on here at RTP NSBE, and I'm sure the Charlotte chapter is doing the same, is serving our community and building the pipeline, because we need to have Black engineers who will be culturally responsible. And what we're focusing on tonight and this week is cultural responsibility. So this is how things are going to operate tonight. We do have several panelists who will be with us. If they wish to be on camera, they may. We're going to actually ask everyone to stay on mute unless we have called on you to speak. If you have questions, please go ahead and put those in the chat as we proceed. I will moderate and facilitate the conversation for you. And we want to have some dialogue. We really want to make sure we have a good conversation that gets us thinking about our process and what we need to do and others we can influence to vote. And also, we want to make sure we are respectful of time so everyone can get in their questions. And this session is being recorded. We typically do record our sessions and we do make them available on our YouTube channel. So just be mindful of that as well. So the first thing I'm going to ask everyone, if you could, in the chat, let us know who has joined us tonight. If you're a college student, if you're in high school, if you're a member of NSBE, if you're a member of a community organization, one of our peer organizations, just put that in the chat. Let us know who is on the call with us tonight, and also what you are hoping to gain from this conversation. If you could just put that in the chat. And Tony, if you don't mind, keep an eye on what you see in the chat. And in a moment, I'll ask you to kind of give us some feedback from that. We do have a few videos that I want to share because I want to make sure that we do take time to really have a good understanding of how we got to where we are. When I say we, as African Americans, what has the journey been like? I don't think enough of us really know the full story. So I do have a few videos, and I want you to be able to take a listen to these, and I'm going to use these stories.
But less is known about what came after. Exhilarating and ultimately known as Reconstruction. It was a moment of profound to vote. In 1867 alone, over 80% of all the Black men in the former Confederate states registered to vote. 3 years later, Hiram Revels was elected the first Black man to serve in the United States Senate, and Joseph Rainey became the first Black United States Congressman. Construction.
There are not many moments in recorded human history so subordinated would, within the space of a decade, actually be integrated into the highest echelon
systematically throughout the South. In 1875, near the end of Reconstruction, the 44th Congress included 7 black House members and a United States Senator. By 1900, only 1 remained, Congressman George Henry White of North Carolina.
By 1901, he literally turns the light off on national black political leadership. No one will come behind him for an entire generation.
One of the cruel ironies of Reconstruction is that black people could claim certain rights in the 1870s that they would have to fight to reclaim in the 1960s. A sobering reminder that achievements thought permanent can be overturned and rights can never be taken for granted.
So how many of you were familiar with that? How many of you knew that information already? Did anybody already know that in 1870 we had that in 1870 we had 2,000 blacks that were part of our Congress, and that we had 80% of black men voting? Did anyone already know that? And if so, you can just put that information in the chat. That was kind of profound to myself as I was pulling this together. I knew that we had blacks that were involved in politics. As a matter of fact, I had a family member that was involved in politics. I saw in some of my history when I was doing research on my family, but I did not realize the number of blacks that were voting, and how much has really not changed since then. It was actually kind of surprising to me. So just a question to everyone, and you can also put this in the chat if you like, has much changed since then? If you look at and listen to those numbers, has much changed? Have we made progress as far as our voice and representation? And you can also, again, place your comments in the chat. I also want to share a couple other, maybe we'll just do one of these videos here that's going to explain a little bit about the Electoral College. So we need to think about that and what happened in the last election.
With the 2020 election approaching, many voters recognize that where they vote may be more consequential than who they vote for. Like most elections, a handful of states will determine the winner. That's because of the Electoral College. The Electoral College chooses the president based on state vote totals, and recent history has shown the winning candidate for president doesn't even need to earn the most individual votes to win the Electoral College vote. 2 outcomes have ignited the debate on the fairness of the Electoral College. In 2000, former Vice President Al Gore received the most votes nationally, winning what's called the popular vote by more than 500,000 votes over former Texas Governor George W. Bush.
NBC News is now taking Florida out of Vice President Gore's column and putting it back in the too close to call.
Gore lost by 5 electoral votes, following a Supreme Court decision that settled a recount dispute in Florida. In 2016, President Donald Trump beat former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton by 74 electoral votes, despite losing the popular vote by nearly 3 million.
I've just received a call from Secretary Clinton. She congratulated us, it's about us, on our victory.
So why does the Electoral College exist, and do these results suggest the need for something new? The Electoral College is a body of legislative officials that directly elects the President of the United States. It's a system that's been in place for more than 200 years, and while it's changed over time, the concept has stayed the same.
The Electoral College is a sort of glued together solution to a problem that the founders, that the people who are at the Constitutional Convention couldn't really solve.
The idea was adopted during the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia.
This was actually a compromise. There was a big fight inside the convention. They worked out a compromise. They had to work out a compromise because otherwise, many of the states would never have agreed to ratify the Constitution and become part of the United States of America. I think the compromise takes into account, on the one hand, people being able to vote and choose the candidates they want, but on the other hand, ensuring that candidates don't ignore large parts of the country.
The Constitution sets up the Electoral College, and it assigns a certain number of electoral votes to each state. There's a total of 538 of them, and the presidential electors meet in mid-December after the people vote in November, and they're the ones who actually elect the president.
When you are in the polling booth to vote, you are actually voting not directly for a candidate, but you are voting for electors who have pledged that when the electors meet in December, they will vote for a particular candidate.
In order to be elected president, the candidate must receive 270, or a majority, of the 538 votes cast. Here's how those 538 votes break down.
435, which is the number of representatives in the House of Representatives, plus 100, which is the number of senators, plus 3, which is representation for Washington, D.C.
A state's population determines how many electors it gets. That number may change every 10 years when the census is conducted and states lose or gain population. Most states follow a winner-takes-all approach.
One of the advantages of the winner-take-all system, which 48 states have, 2 states don't do it that way, is that it means that even when an individual wins and there's a relatively small margin of victory, the winner-take-all system gives that winning candidate a mandate.
Maine and Nebraska are the 2 exceptions to this rule. They allow for more than one candidate to earn electoral votes.
The framers were afraid that if we had a system based simply on the national popular vote, then candidates would simply go to the big cities, the big urban areas, and they would ignore the more rural, less populated parts of the country.
It may seem complicated, but the creation of the Electoral College is consistent with the founders' emphasis on indirect democracy.
They didn't want the people to elect the president because they didn't think that the country, again, in 1787 is very, very divided. There's no sort of national politics, properly speaking. And so it wasn't clear that you could basically ask ordinary people in the street in all of the different parts of the state. They might even not know of the same people, right? So the idea of making it indirect, of having the state legislatures do it, state legislatures, they thought, would have a sort of awareness of what was going on in national politics.
What the Constitution doesn't say is how these presidential electors are selected.
Electors are chosen one of 2 ways. Nominees can be selected before their election by their political parties as a reward for their support. They can also be directly elected by voters during the general election. Electors can only cast their vote once, but vote twice, one for the vice president and the president. And they cannot vote for the president and vice president if both candidates are from the elector's home state. Those in favor of the Electoral College credit the institution with facilitating a peaceful transfer of power for more than 2 centuries.
We've had an extremely stable government for over 200 years. That's actually a historical record when you look at the history of the world. And I think those who argue that we should get rid of this have not really presented good and valid reasons to get rid of a system that has led to such stability. It really is remarkable that every 4 years or 8 years, when a president serves more than one term, the keys to the power of the most powerful government in the world have been peacefully handed over.
But not everyone is convinced. Some opponents of the Electoral College say the system is unfair.
People who have the direct vote on deciding how the president is elected are the 400 state legislators. And what our organization does, National Popular Vote, is we visit with them one-on-one across the country and explain our legislation to them, explain why the current system is bad because it elects second-place candidates and it leaves 3 out of 4 states as spectators in the presidential election, and that it doesn't make every vote equal, and it's inherently unfair.
Others say population disparity gives larger states an unfair advantage, taking power away from smaller states. The integrity of the system has been called into question.
The problem is not in the Electoral College, it's in these state laws that the states have passed that give all of their electoral votes to the candidate who gets the most votes on a state-by-state basis. So we would have a national popular vote for president and still have the Electoral College under the National Popular Vote legislation. The purpose of the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact is to guarantee the presidency to the candidate who gets the most popular votes in all 50 states and the District of Columbia.
Those who believe in the Electoral College say the institution actually promotes a state's right to be fully recognized in the voting process, in addition to preventing recount chaos.
Additionally, it prevents the kind of recount chaos that we could potentially have that would make what happened in Florida in 2000 look mild by comparison.
Some of this debate might be settled soon. The Supreme Court stated in January 2020 that it would rule on whether or not electors have the constitutional right to vote for candidates who didn't win the state popular vote. The Supreme Court justices said they'll review two separate cases of the members of the Electoral College in Washington and Colorado. In both states, electors say they refused to vote for 2016 presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, even though she won the popular vote. Washington and Colorado, like the majority of states, mandate that electors vote at the will of their citizens. But now some members say that these laws are unconstitutional. The Electoral College does not require members to vote for the most desired candidate. Instead, they tend to do so out of precedent. The case in Washington focused on 3 electors who voted for Colin Powell in the 2016 presidential election. These 3 members were each fined $1,000. The Washington Supreme Court upheld the fines, saying electors must stick to the state popular vote. The case in Colorado, meanwhile, was centered around a member of the Electoral College who tried to vote for John Kasich, along with 2 other members who refused to vote for Clinton. The 2 members eventually backed down, while the Kasich voter was replaced. He appealed the state's decision to throw out his vote, saying he has the right to choose his own candidate. The Supreme Court's decision may change the way the Electoral College votes in the next presidential election. However, experts still disagree if the country will move to a national popular vote anytime soon.
The United States will adopt the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact probably in time for the 2024 election.
I don't foresee that in the future. I think there have been, since the beginning of the country, over 700 proposals to get rid of the Electoral College through constitutional amendments. None of them have been successful.
So I want you also to, we won't listen to all of this one, but listen to a philosophy that is a little different from what you just heard. There is more to the story that's not always told. So I'm going to share how the Electoral College was somewhat put into place in a way that was more or less pro-slavery. So I'll let you take a listen to this one.
Why do we have the Electoral College? The debates at the Constitutional Convention are fascinating. They spend days trying to figure out how many years the president should serve, whether the president should repeat his terms, who should elect the president. At one point, they suggest the governors should get together and elect the president. That doesn't fly. They have all sorts of other suggestions. The governors should send nominations to Congress. Congress should elect the president. Ultimately, they decide that the president has to be elected in some kind of national fashion. Well, in the middle of this debate, James Madison, who's the father of the Constitution, says the fittest thing, that's the word he used, would be for the people to elect the president. A number of other delegates say the same thing. But then Madison goes on to say there's a huge problem with that. He says that you can't have the people elect the president because the southern states could have no influence in the election on the score of the Negroes. Well, of course, when he says Negroes, what he means is the slaves. The 40% of Virginia who were slaves, the 50 to 55% of South Carolina who were slaves, the 30% of North Carolina who were slaves. The problem is this: slaves aren't voting. If you have a direct election of the president, the only people who can vote are the free voters. So Virginia isn't going to get any political power from its slaves. By this time, the convention has already agreed to allocate representatives in Congress based on the population of the whole number of free people and 3/5 of all other people. And who are the 3/5 of other people? They're the slaves. And the Electoral College says that you will get electors based on the number of representatives you have in Congress. If you had the direct election of the president, then the South is going to lose every election, and you're going to get one Northern president after another. A delegate from North Carolina who was taking notes at the convention that day, he quotes Madison, "If we had a direct election of the president, Virginians won't get elected president." Now, we're talking about the state that produces Washington, Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe, 4 of our first 5 presidents. Change the way they're chosen, and these guys might or might not get elected. Now, of course, we have universal adult suffrage, and therefore no state is at a disadvantage because there's a large population of people like slaves who can't vote, and so we could just count everybody's vote. And here's the crux of the matter for modern Americans. The reason we have the Electoral College is because of slavery. It is the last legacy, the last vestige of slavery in the U.S. Constitution that is still affecting our political lives. As James Madison says, the fittest thing would be for the people to directly elect the president through the popular vote.
Wow. So I hope you guys are learning some things that you maybe had not heard about before, but are getting a better sense of why it's important for us to vote and the journey that has got us to where we are. So even though you've heard what was just said, and you might be thinking, you know, what does this matter? Why do we need to know this? But understand how powerful your vote is, because there's so many people who want to take it away from you. So understand how powerful it is, and also understand how important it is for you to encourage others to do the same. Now, kind of setting the stage with those things, at this point, I want to introduce an organization called North Carolina Black Alliance, because I want them to kind of help us be more informed about voting and set for us the stage for how we can have an influence in the issues that they represent. And, you know, what are those things that we may not be aware of that might help us make our decisions on our personal ballots. Everybody's ballot is not going to be exactly the same. So I'm going to ask that, Jasmine, are you ready? Do you want to introduce, or whoever's going to introduce North Carolina Black Alliance? I'll let you go ahead and do that at this time.
Hey, Tony. Yeah, I'm ready here, ready to rock and roll. Definitely want to thank you so much for setting the stage with those amazing videos. Those are really good. Honestly, you are probably more equipped than anybody to be out here talking about voting. Tony is just so really just into this, into voting, into political engagement, and really just want to lift up just how much of a model her consistent engagement is. And we're really going to get into a lot more today, just the importance of that. But before we go there, I want to take a little bit of time to introduce the North Carolina Black Alliance. The North Carolina Black Alliance essentially is an organization that was made about 20, 30 years ago, really made as a place for Black political figures in North Carolina, whether you are state level, whether you're city, county level officials, to really just have a place to kind of come together and discuss common things. I think that it is a misinformed thing that people think that all elected officials understand everything that's going on. And one of the things that the North Carolina Black Alliance really gained a lot of importance, and a lot of people, a lot of elected officials flocked to us, was because we were able to kind of share information across the board. Because what you would see is you would have Black elected officials in Eastern North Carolina not talking to elected officials in Western North Carolina or in the urban areas. And there was just a lack of representation all around. And you had elected officials just kind of doing their own thing in their own silos. Well, the Alliance allowed a platform for Black electeds to really come in and talk about things from education, to talk about things from housing, criminal justice, healthcare, and really be a platform to create common policies and common just ways of thinking and sharing information around these things that were really just hurting Black people around North Carolina. Well, a few years ago, fast forward, about 7 or 8 years ago, there was also this thing, well, if we want to sit here and talk about a lot of the issues that are going on and getting Black elected officials on the same page, we also at the same time have to bring people who are actually experiencing those issues into the fold, right? So that means that in order to, you know, have a platform where Black elected officials are also talking to each other, how can Black electeds be talking to each other and then not be talking to people to understand the issues that Black people were also going through? And so the North Carolina Black Alliance kind of built out this model, this education model, where we're not only educating Black elected officials, but we're also listening to, hearing from, and letting people on the ground educate us so that we can educate everyone else. And it's been so far a pretty successful strategy around building out engagement. And so we have engagement in a lot of different ways. I know a lot of you here are college students, and so we'll talk a little bit more about that. We have engagement with, you know, our older, our more seasoned groups of people, and also our community-based organizations around the state. So it really is a melting pot, or become a melting pot of different political issues, and just really a place where folks, we can really gather around a lot of common thought and help solve each other's issues.
So Jasmine, let's pause for just a moment. I just want to see if we have any questions that have come through. So Tony, what kind of questions have come through in the chat that we might need to pause for a moment and answer? What are you seeing in there?
There's no questions yet. It just looks like we have a good mixture of collegiate students and professional members as far as representation, but no questions as yet.
Okay. I thought I saw something in there about NSBE. Somebody wanted to know what NSBE's public policy. I just peeked at it when I was scrolling through real quick before the video.
Oh, yeah, I did to that one. My fault.
It might have been kind of early up.
It was Ms. Gibson, and she's a previous NSBE member looking to renew. Said she wanted to find out NSBE stance regarding public policy and influence on the Black community.
Okay. I do have some information on that a little later, and on the Eventbrite for this this session. We're going to leave it up until after the election because we have a lot of useful links out there, and we will continue to update it. There is a social justice special interest group for NSBE, and actually I might need to reconnect with her because we need someone for RTP NSBE to be our social justice ambassador. Like, there's a whole agenda for the national office and we need someone who can kind of lead our chapter and staying connected with that and keeping us involved on what the national directive is. So there is a website that is on the Eventbrite, and we'll put that in the chat a little later on. All righty. So any questions from anybody? And if you want to come off mute, we can do that. Any questions for Jasmine at this point about North Carolina Black Alliance or what they do or something that you think might be a concern of yours that she may be able to answer? And if you do have a question, please introduce yourself and tell us if you're representing an organization. Okay. All right. Well, I don't think we have any at this time, but if you do have something, oh, I do see a raised hand. Kevin Bobbitt, is that you, Kevin, from KCSSU?
Yes. How you doing, Dr. Tony?
Hey, how's it going, Kevin?
All right. Yes, I'm Kevin Bobbitt, KCSSU Committed Culture Science. You know, I just wanted to, you know, find out as far as you ask about questions in reference to what?
You still there, Kevin? I think we might have lost.
Yes, yeah, that was the question. Because when I came in, you was asking if anybody had any questions, and I was just, you know, wondering in reference to what?
Oh, any questions regarding anything that we've already talked about up to this point? Jasmine just introduced North Carolina Black Alliance, and just wanted to know if anyone had any questions on any of the content we've already shared, and anything that might be policy related or something that's a concern. Yes.
This is Douglas. I have a question. So could you give an example of something that the Black Alliance has worked on in the past?
Yeah, so we've worked, and by work, I'm assuming that you mean like as far as like events that we have that are pretty much staple and like different programs.
Program, event, or some goal that you have.
Issues, maybe.
Issue, yeah, some issue that you feel is important.
Yeah, so the North Carolina Black Alliance in the past, we have worked on a range of issues from housing has been one of our really big ones. Working on things such as electoral voting strategies, getting people out to vote. Mainly, we have been running like non-partisan programs, specifically like what we're talking about today around election time. Every year there's an election, and really getting people to the polls, empowering folks with information of like where their polling locations are. Also have worked on college student youth voter engagement programs. The Black Alliance hosts what is called an Hbcu think tank every year. We also work on and keep that pretty common theme of like having elected officials and people who are invested in politics kind of meeting in the same space with what is called our North Carolina Black Summit. I'm so sorry, that skipped my mind. But yeah, so our Black Summit, North Carolina Black Summit, and it is a place where we essentially just have it's like a 2-day event every year, with the exception of this year because of COVID, where we have Black elected officials come, learn from community members and people who are doing all kinds of political work from around the state, come and meet and discuss different ideas and different ways to keep uplifting the state of North Carolina. So that's a few of our programs, and I'll be able to show you, I think, a few more. We're going to take a little dip into the website here pretty soon.
So Jasmine, can you talk a little bit about, I know earlier today, you know, I was looking at my own personal ballot and just kind of, not my ballot, but my jurisdiction. And I do want people to be able to know how to go look at their jurisdiction and understand who their representatives are. But can you talk a little bit about gerrymandering? I don't quite think people understand how that is just kind of another way of voter suppression with under another name. So, yeah.
So with gerrymandering, we will get into that a little bit later, and that's in my advocacy training. So we'll talk a little bit more about gerrymandering. We'll talk more about voter ID. We'll talk more about other suppression things that are done commonly at the ballot box. But yeah.
Okay. All right. So just kind of in a summary, the types of things that North Carolina Black Alliance works on will be issues such as gerrymandering, ensuring voter rights, ensuring fair housing, and anything that kind of pretty much affects the welfare of people of color.
All right.
Okay. Does that sound accurate?
Yep. No, yeah, that sounds right.
Okay.
Let me know when you're ready for me to get into things.
Okay. Was there anyone else you needed to introduce from North Carolina Black Alliance?
No, Marcus couldn't be on tonight, and Shimei is having some internet issues. So
okay. So you want me to go ahead to the advocacy?
No, I'll be running through the whole program tonight.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So, and I can handle this as well, like the voting as I'll go into all that.
All right, so we'll go ahead and go through voting as a college student. I wanted to make sure our college students have a great understanding of, hey, if you're not registered, how to get registered. I know that with the pandemic, some students had to go back home. Back home might be in another state. It might be in another county. You may have registered in one county, but now you're in another county. So I just want to make sure that the students have all their questions answered. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Jasmine, to talk further about this part.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen really quick.
Sure. Okay. Let me stop sharing and then you can, there you go.
It says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Okay. Doug, are you able to give Jasmine the, oh, I can do it. There you go. Try that now.
All right.
That work?
Yep, that did it.
Awesome.
Right. So I'm going to share right now. All right. Can everyone see?
So, yes, we see.
This is the North Carolina Black Alliance website. This is all here. Let's see. You should be able to get to, if you just type in North Carolina Black Alliance, it'll take you to the About Us page. And if you go to voter safety and protection, I don't want to have to go through all that. Voter safety and protection, it'll give you, first of all, something that's very, very important. Oops, sorry, y'all. Some key voting deadlines. So for all of my college students or people who are new to North Carolina, so October 9th is the voter registration deadline. October 15th through the 31st is our early voting period. Same day voter registration period. October 27th, 5 p.m. is the deadline to request the absentee ballot. And then November 3rd is election day. So 5 p.m. deadline to submit ballot. And let's see, here. And there's a little link right here called College Students. And so this link allows you, if you are in school currently, and you're wondering, you're just like, okay, you know, how do I do this voting thing here in the midst of a pandemic, which is crazy. This is here to offer a little bit of support. So on the website, we have Take Charge of Your Vote. You can see here, if you click on this link, you can, shows you just what voting, takes you to the Board of Elections website in whatever county that you're in. So it's pretty useful for all intents and purposes. I am going to click on, let's see, let's wait here. I'm going to click on wait. So it gives me the Wake County Board of Elections website. It gives me the address here. It gives me the mailing and the phone number. So you can call if you have any issues, and the director as well. so you know who to talk to in your respective areas. Go back. It also has a link where you can vote in your home state. Takes you to the U.S. Election Assistance Commission. And from here, you should be able to like navigate voting in your home state, and also understanding what voting looks like, because voting and the actual voting process in each state is different. And so today we'll be focusing, just for clarity, today we'll mostly be focusing on North Carolina. So HBCU campus voting sites. I know we have an array of different schools that are represented here tonight. But if you are at an HBCU, because we are a Black organization, and so many of our folks have gone to HBCUs, we have direct connections here. So if you're at Johnson C. Smith, Wallace Pruitt is your voting location. Winston-Salem State, you live on campus. The Alder Street location is going to be your voting location. And let's see, and we're going to go over some steps to registering to vote in North Carolina. So not really sure, but if you want to put some questions that you might have around registration into the chat box, so I can make sure that I answer those. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting for those to roll in, I want to take a look at some of these helpful hints and ways to really register, because this is the first year that North Carolina has online voter registration, which from a policy standpoint was very, very difficult to push through. North Carolina has been trying to push through online VR for a very long time. And COVID, because of COVID, it finally allowed the General Assembly to push it through, and with the help of the State Board of Elections. So here is, go online. Many common North Carolina DMV services, such as the driver license renewal and vehicle registration renewal, can be performed at any time. You can order, what? Yeah, oh gosh. Ooh, hold on, this is not what I need.
I think I just saw it.
I'm sorry, yeah, this is not what I needed. Let me go back here. Yeah, I'm not trying to go. Yeah, here we go. Sorry, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, VR application. So you can go ahead, register to vote, get started right from your home. Continue.
Yeah, I see it at the top. You can, so if people, if you are, yeah, right there. Mm-hmm. And I want to say you have to have your driver's license or your ID.
Yeah.
To register.
This is so.
Yeah, that's it. You have to create that my NCDMV account.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, they started it. I just registered I had to pay my car registration the other day, so that's how I know. It's a little different. Yeah. Okay. So you can also, because it asked if I needed to register, but I was already registered.
Oh man, I was hoping to take folks to the actual application, but but you have to, like what Tony said. She probably, again, I've stated, Tony probably knows more about this than I do. She is you're a precinct, right?
Yeah, precinct officer. Mm-hmm.
She knows all the good stuff. But yeah, okay. So yeah, this link here, or this line here, if you go to our website, will take you to the online North Carolina VR registration. But here, we can look at the North Carolina voter registration form. And so we can go over it. Every field that is in red is required, right? So I usually tell people, when you're looking at your voter registration form, fill out everything. Honestly, just fill out everything. I know that there are some things that folks prefer not to disclose, and I understand that, but you just really don't want to give people a reason to look at your VR form and for whatever reason say that it's incomplete. So you have to start with the first two questions. Are you a citizen, and will you be 18 years of age before election day? You click yes. Are you at least 16 years, whatever, before election day? Yes. So you're going to list your full name, middle name. If you have a suffix, a junior, put it there, your first name, your date of birth. Everything in red is required. But again, it is better to just put as much information as possible because you don't want them to have any reason to reject what you've got going on your form. So I usually tell folks, hey, last 4 digits of your social security number, if you know it, putting your license number right here, your ID number over here. And this part usually trips people up a bit. Looking at your residential address versus your mailing address. So for some folks, it is the same, but for other folks, you know, where you receive your mail may not necessarily be where you are a resident of. And you would put where you live will go in box number 4. Where you receive mail goes in 5. Sometimes this is different. It may look the same if you receive mail and if you live at the same place, but if that, you know, that is the case, good, that's fine. That is often common, but you just want to make sure that you understand, you know, those differences, and also filling out, do you receive mail at your resident? Yes or no. Also, if you don't have a physical address. So this is for our population of folks who may be houseless. Before the form, I believe, when did they make this change to the form? I think it was in 2018, 2017. No, not 2018. I think it was like 2017.
2017, yeah.
Yeah, they made the change to the form to be more inclusive of folks who may not necessarily have a residence. And so if you don't have a physical address, you still have the ability to sort of describe where you live. And you would do that by drawing an X on the map that shows where you typically reside, right, or demonstrating it. And in good faith, the Board of Elections is supposed to approve that. Providing your demographic information. This is the information where people typically, don't want to do, but it is helpful because it, you know, it allows us to understand who you are as a person and really as a voter, and provides extra information that comes out after post voting. So yeah, I like to tell people to fill it out. So provide your choice for political party affiliations: Constitution Party, Libertarian Party, Republican Party, unaffiliated, Green Party, Democratic Party, or another party here. Complete if you are currently registered in North Carolina, in another North Carolina county, or in another state. This information will be used to cancel your previous VR in another state or county. So if you are not from here, which I know a lot of college students are not, or you may have registered somewhere else and you're registering in North Carolina, you're going to want to give us your first name, using your last registration, your middle name, your last name, first name, middle name, last name, suffix, address where you were last registered, and county of your last registration. And providing your contact information is very important. I think that this is actually one of the most important pieces of a ballot, because if something goes awry or something is wrong with your ballot, oftentimes it is the case where most precincts will reach back out to a voter, and or the person who registered you has the ability to reach back out to you. And make that contact. But if you don't put anything, then we can't make that contact. And then when you go to vote, say you go to vote on election day, all hope is kind of lost. And, you're not able to really fix your registration. And, your ballot, I believe, is counted as provisional. Yeah. And so we don't want that. And then after you do all that jazz, would you like to be contacted to be a poll worker? Yes or no? Poll working is very useful. You will sign and date. Yep. And please do not commit fraud or falsely complete a form. It is a felony. Also, it is important to know that after, I don't know if any of you have family members who have been incarcerated, but in the state of North Carolina, you are able to, once you have finished any restitution from the state, you are able to register to vote. Because a lot of people think, because I have a felony or I've been to jail, I can't vote, and that's just not true. Once you've done your restitution, you've paid your dues, you now have the ability to cast a ballot and to register. Also want to give this clarification and put this out here. While we are in a fight with our, in the fight with our brown brothers and sisters and Latinx brothers and sisters, if you know someone's citizenship status is a little bit shaky or it's not complete, if you are not a citizen, please, please, please do not fill out this form. It has been known to actually link people back, ICE back to people, and like the government uses it against people who register, also plugging them in with a felony and then using it to come get them because it shows where you are. So this has also been used to attack our immigrant population. So just, keep that in mind if you're passing this information along, being sure. You just really want to be sure that citizenship status, and you have to be a citizen, not going through the motions, not, I'm a citizen, I haven't gone through the last class. It doesn't matter. You want that citizenship to be clear. It's almost better not to register someone if their registration status, if their citizenship status is not clear. So just want to put that out there.
So we did have a question that came in about the ex-convicts, but you spoke to that now. That is state specific. Every state is not the same, but in the state of North Carolina, upon completion of serving the sentence, it's automatically instated. The citizenship is automatically reinstated. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Once restitution is finished. And by restitution, I mean you've gone through everything with your parole officer and the state after. And so there's been a lot of upheaval around this. But your parole, whomever your parole officer is, or sometimes it comes through folks' lawyers, you should actually receive confirmation from the state itself that you now have the ability and the right to vote. A lot of people have not been receiving that, and it has been the cause of a lot of voter disenfranchisement, and has been another blockage to the ballot box. And so if you do have a loved one or a family member in the state of North Carolina who has gone through that restitution and paid back their dues to the state and they haven't received that, you're going to want to make sure that they call someone at the Board of Elections to make sure that they're able to register to vote and they're all clear. And the BOE should be able to help them with that, as well as their lawyer or PO.
That's good. I saw something on the news. I'm going to put that in the chat. I also put the links in the chat as you were speaking. But there was a question that came up about if someone has not been charged yet, maybe they have a case pending and they haven't been charged, are they able to vote in this election? I don't want to misspeak, so I want to check that out. But I believe that they said if you have not been charged by election day, you're still able to vote. But I want to confirm that. Let me just check real quick.
Yeah, that is, from my understanding, that is
correct.
Is
correct? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from everything that I've been taught. But that is correct. I don't know if folks are familiar with I think it was the Alamance 12 or the Alamance 14 case where they were utilizing, where Alamance County itself was utilizing that strategy to try to disencourage voters, telling some people that, if you're going through the court system, you can't vote. They were mistelling people who had already paid their restitution back mistelling folks who hadn't paid their restitution back to the state that they weren't able to vote. And actually 14 people were given felony charges for registering to vote with misinformation from the county itself. You really have to be, it's wild. So again, like I said, a lot of upheaval has been around criminal justice and criminalizing people through voting. And so you want to be sure and safe. But, we also want to be vigilant that people aren't taking advantage of our incarcerated brothers and sisters.
Right. So let's pause. Do we have any questions on any of what we've discussed so far? Anything for Jasmine? Okay, we'll proceed. And I've been putting some links, like I said, in the chat. And then also on our Eventbrite page, I've put the college link to North Carolina Black Alliance's Safe Vote. I put that out there, as well as the voting guide for North Carolina.
All right. Well, Tony, is it okay to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead, proceed.
All right. So, Tony, I heard you mention checking your VR status form. So, through the State Board of Elections, you can fill out this query right here, and it'll show you what your status is. God, I'm scared to put mine in here, but I'll volunteer as tribute. Y'all don't judge me if it's anything crazy. 10/29, 1992. Y'all don't be looking at my birth date, my age. County, let's see, Wake. And I'm a registered voter. Oh shoot, I'm sorry, I just reset it. I'm so sorry. Go through this search. All right, so says I'm active. Jasmine Victoria Childs. Y'all don't be telling people my government name. And this is where I'm registered. So if you need to see that, again, you can find a lot of this. It's like a one-stop shop right on our website. Here, go take us back. And if you need to cancel your North Carolina registration form, here's a link also to doing that. Uh-oh. Says it's not found. Uh-oh. That link may have changed. I have to see about that. But I know here's the big whoop. So the North Carolina absentee ballot. This is also technically, this is, we've been calling it mail-in balloting. I don't want people to, I do want folks to know the difference between, the North Carolina absentee ballot and actually doing like mail-in balloting. Technically, I guess you could say this is mail-in balloting in North Carolina. However, I don't want us to think that this is the holy grail of how we can be casting our votes, right? There is still an easier process. Like for instance, in Colorado, how, everyone, you don't have to go through the motions of requesting a ballot. Everyone literally just gets mailed a ballot and then you mail it back. And it's as simple as that. And you get a receipt of your absentee ballot being received. However, that is unfortunately not the battleground state that we live in. And that's not the process that was agreed upon. But I just don't want people to get discouraged around this. It's not necessarily hard. I've come in contact with a lot of folks who have gone through it. But again, it's the best we got this year, which folks fought really hard for. So right now I'm requesting a ballot. And so I can go to voter lookup. You have to be, you can register to vote here, which is nice. A query for you to register to vote before you go and you look at, you request your ballot. But my first name, my last name, I actually have not requested one because I am gonna be brave and go in person. 29th, you all tell me if I'm boring you. I hope this is helpful. If it's really not, let me know. I can take harsh criticism, but just want to show folks this. So here you'll need your driver's license or the last 4 digits. I'm not going to go through all of that or put you all through all of that, but yeah, that's just where you can request it. And you, the portal, and then actually here is the form, the written form for you to write in, you know, manually and request it through the Board of Elections, and this can be mailed in. So theoretically, I would fill this out, then mail this in, and they would then mail me a ballot. And yeah, and on that ballot is everything that you are voting on in North Carolina, from the top of the ticket down to what is referred to as the bottom of the ticket. And now, before we go any further, just want to make sure folks don't have any questions, because I know that a lot of this is pretty information heavy.
Any questions, anybody? I do want to mention too also that the application, you may have gotten something in the mail, and I just went to see if I could, maybe this is it right here, find it. But basically, there's an organization called Voter Information. You'll probably get like maybe 3 or 4 of those. It's a white envelope. I thought it was my ballot, but it was not. It was just an application to request my ballot. Now, I actually went online and put in my DMV, my driver's license number, and requested my ballot online and signed the computer screen. So if you had a capability to actually sign on your screen, you can actually request your ballot online, and it will be mailed to you, I think, in about 10 days. There's also an organization that's sending out an envelope. I think it's called Voter Information. It has confused a lot of people because they get that and they think that that is the ballot. No, that's a different organization. That is not the Board of Elections. That is not your county Board of Elections. It's a different organization. If I find my envelope, I will bring it in here because I've gotten like 3 or 4 of those. So if you have requested it by mail, it takes about 10 days. And you can also do what's called the Ballot Tracker and get an email or a text to let you know that your ballot is on the way. And then when you mail it back in, you will also get a text letting you know where it is in the process. And I do have that link on the Eventbrite page, which is in the chat. So there's a way where you can just track your ballot. If you're a little concerned about the mail-in process, you can track your ballot. I also took a picture of my ballot number just in case I needed it. It will be at the top of your ballot when you get it. So are there any questions? I do see, hold on, I do see a few over here. So Elliot is saying, is it an issue to be registered to vote, but your address has changed since you registered and you still vote under the old address? I do think that you are supposed to vote where you live. However, if you do the early vote, October 15th through the 31st, you can update your address at that time and go ahead and vote. So I would do that, Elliot, and if that's possible, go ahead and during the early vote, and wait, if they're both in the same county, if you're going to be, well, I don't think it's going to matter North Carolina. In the early vote, go to your new address, or go to any early vote location and update your address when you go vote. And you can do that at the same time, telling you to update your address. It's kind of like you're registering at the new location. Is that correct, Jasmine? Would you say that is?
Yep, that's spot on. That was actually going to be my plan of action because I need to do the same thing.
Yes, and someone else says, I was wondering, does anyone offer transportation to voting sites for people who may not have transportation? Do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, so actually there have been, I know that there will be a few more pushes and we'll know a lot more when election day gets here. People have been a little bit hesitant, but we do know that Lyft and Uber are actually going to be paying for free rides to your nearest polling location. And a lot of people will be partnering through them. So just, you know, keep track of your Uber and your Lyft apps, and they'll be be looking to do it. I know a lot of churches and schools have been hesitant because of the liability due to coronavirus. Yeah, so Lyft and Uber have kind of taken on the volunteers tribute, if you will, and said that they can safely get people to their polling locations.
I'm gonna look online too to see if I see someone that is some information on that, so I can post that. Andre says, do I need to update address for voter registration by Friday? Yeah, Friday is the 9th. That is actually the deadline to register. But if you also don't make that, you can do it in person, early vote October the 15th through the 31st. If you are able to register online, meaning that you can provide an ID for the address where you live, you can actually register online and not have to do it in person, but you would still have to either vote by mail or go do the early vote. If you have changed addresses, meaning that where you live at now and the address that's on your driver's license, if those are not the same, then your voter registration is going to go to the address that's on your driver's license. So that's not going to do you any good. You would need to actually either go get your new ID, or when you go to do the early vote, bring identification, 2 copies, a government ID, as well as something showing your address, like a bill, and you'll be able to register and vote early, October 15th through the 31st. Did that answer for you, Andre? If you still have questions on that, Andre, you can reach out to me to get that straight. But we can talk. There's a list of what the ID is and what you need. I'll see if I can find that. There's certain types of ID that they accept. Kirsten says, oh, Kirsten put a site out there that's useful with the sample ballot. I don't know, Jasmine, you might pull that up. Well, I think the link that's in there, but basically, here's my sample ballot. It's good to actually look at your ballot before you go to the polls. You can go online and look it up. That link that Jasmine put has it, as well as the one that Kirsten put is also on the Eventbrite page for this webinar. But it's good to take a look at it in advance. And also, it's good to know your precinct number. I'll see if you guys can see that. Mine is 01-49. It's always good to know your precinct number in case you get there and something looks different. So you'll know, that something's not right. So know your precinct number. And that also gives you your jurisdiction information. We do have the Lyft information that's been put in the chat for getting rides. Okay. All right, I think that's it for a moment. So back to you, Jasmine.
All right. So, Tony, thank you. I think this was the perfect segue into the next part of this presentation, which is...
One moment, Jasmine. I forgot one question, sorry. Someone wanted to know, if they don't fill out everything on the ballot, does it still count? So if they just go and they only put down president, for example. I know a lot of people who have done that in the past. What does that do? Does it still count?
Yes, your ballot still counts. They'll just only count the presidential that you put in. Because there are some people who really just don't want to vote for everything. And I guess everyone has their reasons, but yes, it'll still count.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. All right. So moving on to our next section, looking at what's on the ballot. So a lot of people, in addition to who, I know that will look different from each county and each precinct around North Carolina, but I think there's a commonality of, what is actually on the ballot and what some of these positions mean. And I'm going to try to run through this pretty quickly because I know it's getting a little late and it's a lot of information. So here we have our president is going to be on the ballot. 4 years, 2-term limits. And of course, I think the duties of the president directly oversees all agencies of the executive branch of government. Primary duty of the president is to ensure that the U.S. laws are carried out and the federal government runs effectively. And then under that, we have vice president. 4 years, again, 2 term limits. The VP is the second highest executive officer of the U.S. government. The vice president has the duty to take over as president of the United States if the president dies. And also there is a little blurb on here about the impact on your life. Influence national security policy and foreign policy. The VP of the U.S. can help either influence decisions of the law or help make the law. U.S. Senate. So this will also be on most of you all's ballots. I think some of this falls on a 2020 year. In North Carolina, Tom Tillis is up for re-election. Tom Tillis versus Cal Cunningham. But a senator has the power to introduce bills and resolutions and considers legislation proposed by the U.S. House of Representatives. Impacting your life, senators impact the laws that are enforced and treaties that are approved. So the U.S. House of Representatives, 13 districts, 2 years, term limits, and they don't, term is 2 years, and term limits, they don't have any. So the duties of this, the House of Representatives, is the lower chamber of Congress. The House has 435 representatives. House members represent specific geographic districts within their state. Impact. House members impact the laws that are enforced and impeach the president of the U.S. So now we're moving into our state level government and politics. And this is where I want folks to really listen and take a hard look because this is probably, you know, the things, and I've said this before, these are the things that touch your life the most. But your governor, 4 years, 2 terms in the state of North Carolina. The governor appoints state leaders, manages state funding, enforces new state laws and programs, and works to improve their state's overall well-being. The governor's specific duties and responsibilities are mandated by the state constitution and legislative statutes. The impact on your life. The governor is the chief executive officer of the state. Governors have the ability to sign bills into laws and veto them. And in the chat, I want for folks to just kind of put, what are some important decisions that you've seen governors make over the time of COVID? Just want to kind of see what folks think there. So that'll be, I can actually put that in the chat. Want to get a sense of that. Perk up our stay at home orders. Here's the question. Anybody else? Oh yes, you will definitely get a link to this document. Anyone else? What are some other important things that we've seen the governor kind of do during the pandemic?
Definitely make decisions about, he's still making decisions about school and what, you know, kind of what that schedule is going to look like, and right. The universities, well, I guess he didn't make decisions, the chancellors and presidents did, but kind of influencing the public, decisions that are going to help the public health of the state. Absolutely. It may not be popular with everybody what he's doing, but he has to protect the people of North Carolina.
Here's somebody, Nesby from Charlotte, put exactly what I was looking for. Declare state of emergency. This, especially because of the pandemic, has been such an important ability. So when we declare state of emergency of a state, it puts us, it puts the powers at B outside of their normal jurisdiction. So we've seen the governor of North Carolina specifically, and other governors, such as like Governor Cuomo in New York, the governor of Maryland, I've seen him do a few things. The governor of Georgia, I've seen him also do some things, but you know, what have you, that really are outside of the powers that we would normally think that they have. So he's been doing a lot of executive orders. This has also beefed up his ability to veto certain things that were put through the General Assembly, because themselves, by declaring North Carolina in state of emergency, they've gotten their own powers that that are also outside of what they are normally jurisdicted to do by law. So this has been a really challenging time, legally strategizing and also just thinking about how the state is being ran. But thank you for putting that. That's what I was looking for. That was the fish, and you caught it. Appreciate it. So also moving on here, thank you all for humoring me. But moving on here, Lieutenant Governor. This is another very important position. We have 2 Black people running for this position in the state of North Carolina now, which is unheard of and has not been done in the history of the state. But the duties, high officer of the state, whose precise role and rank vary by jurisdiction, but is often the deputy or lieutenant or ranking under a governor. It's the second in command in North Carolina. The lieutenant governor acts as the president of the North Carolina Senate by the office ex officio. The lieutenant governor is a member of the North Carolina Council of State. All right. And also that's something very key. Can someone tell me what is the North Carolina Council of State? You can put it in the chat or you can say it. Nobody? Or just a council of state in general? All right, so I will just tell you. So a council of state is essentially acts as the governor's, it's like his cabinet, right? It is the elected positions within state government that really heavily affect your life. So AG is also a part of the Council of State. You have your Secretary of State and your state treasurer. Is DPI? I don't think DPI is. But I also think state auditor is as well as a part of the Council of State. But yeah, just a collective name for the senior executive offices within government. And that's really what it is. But very important to know, because I think a lot of people talk about the Council of State and they don't mention the important positions within that. So just want to throw that out there. So moving on, your Attorney General, duties of the Attorney General is elected head of the state's Department of Justice. The impact of your life, the AG is the chief legal advisor and law enforcer of the state. So the AG represents the people of the state in civil and criminal matters in all state and federal courts. So really interesting, the Attorney General in North Carolina, some of the interesting powers that they have the ability to do. Of course, it's important to elect local DAs, district attorneys, and we'll get to that later down the line in your respective counties. But the Attorney General also has the ability to call up court cases. So a lot of the situations where we're seeing like wrongful imprisonment or issues in regards to criminal justice, the Attorney General's office has the ability to kind of have jurisdiction over that. And bring those court cases like back up. I know I did a little bit of work on the Dante Sharp case. Not sure if folks are familiar with that, but one of our points of contention was the Attorney General at the time, and then of course the governor and the DA, because they have the ability to make decisions in wrongful conviction cases. Secretary of State, the North Carolina Secretary of State leads the Department of Secretary of State, which oversees many of the economic and business-related operations of state government. The Secretary of State keeps record of past land mortgages and important documents. The office acts as the enforcer to counties and makes sure that the county upholds state-regulated expectations of record keeping and newly administered laws. State Treasurer. The North Carolina State Treasurer is responsible for overseeing financial operations of state government. The Treasurer administers retirement plans and other benefit programs for public workers and overseers, and oversees more than $90 billion in pension investments for more than 900,000 teachers, firefighters, and public employees, which is really important. Superintendent of Public Instruction, very important. The North Carolina Superintendent of Public Instruction is the head of the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction and oversees the public school system of the state. Impact on your life. The superintendent holds a tremendous amount of authority by managing public school funding and enforcing North Carolina state education laws. State auditor. The state auditor is responsible for overseeing and reviewing financial accounts of all state government agencies. Citizens can initiate requests to the state auditor to audit any agency within statutory authority. The office of the auditor acts as a watchdog for the state government and provides citizens, legislators, and governors, government officials with professional independent evaluations of North Carolina's financial records and performance reports. That's been a really important position going through COVID-19, by the way. I believe Beth Wood, who's our current auditor, has really had a time of it. Looking at the questions, Douglas Davis, I noticed that the governor and lieutenant governor are elected separately and can be in different parties. Besides the Council of State, do they work together at all? Are these two jobs really related, like the president and VP, or are they mostly separate and work on their own? That's a really great question. So Douglas, for the most part, they are technically supposed to work together. Do they always work together? I think that is to be determined. But I think right now, like for instance, right now, the situation that we're in North Carolina specifically, Governor Cooper is a Democrat and Dan Forest is a Republican. And so they do work together, from my knowledge, they do work together when it comes to some issues. But for the most part, there are also just duties that the Lieutenant Governor covers that are very different in his dealings from the governor's office. So typically, like it's more of their offices that do a lot of the working together besides like them working themselves. But lieutenant governors, a lot of their dealings is really with the North Carolina General Assembly as well. So they get a chance to kind of oversee that and really focus on that, while the governor is really focused more on like the affairs of like the whole state. So I know that that is like a thing, but they do have times where they have to come together. I hope that answers your question. Moving on. I know this is a lot, guys. Just stick with me. So, because I know that it's a lot, but it's so important. Let's see. Commissioner of Agriculture. Y'all, this position is more important than you know. Commissioner of Agriculture directs the implementation of more than 75 different laws and programs. The North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services divisions have responsibilities in regulatory and service areas covering agronomy, animal health, weights and measures, gas and oil inspection, crop and livestock statistics, USDA commodity distribution, state farm operations, food, drug, and cosmetic testing for purity. So I don't know if we have any folks who are really environmental engineering heavy or focused just on the environment, but the Commissioner of Agriculture has a lot to do with that and how that's being ran. And this year, there are some really good candidates that are looking to fill that spot. The impact on your life. The Commissioner of Agriculture influences how the state fair and farms in North Carolina are operated and ensures the food grown and harvested in the state are safe for citizens to consume. Also, there is a lot of inequity amongst Black farmers. We were actually talking about this.
Yeah, we were.
Today. But yeah, like the Black farmers in North Carolina. So a lot of, one of the things that the commissioners of agriculture are looking to do is to ensure equity within Black farmers who have a long history of being, disproportionately impacted by racial and economic, racial and economic upheavals. And the Commissioner of Agriculture has really been charged, this position has been charged to really do something about that and really offer some just recompense for a lot of the Black farmers in the state.
On that note, there is a program called LEAP that is underway, so that Black farmers we have a unique situation called heiress property, which means in our families, sometimes farms are passed down without deeds and land. It's not legally owned. It's not documented well. So that makes it hard for us to go get a loan or use collateral for our business. Therefore, we end up not farming and we end up possibly losing the land in our family. So there's some other things that are kind of connected with that that create, a disparity for us. I did want to mention too, as Jasmine is going through this, you might want to go ahead and do your homework. I put the sample ballot link back in here. If you want to go there and download your ballot, she's actually kind of going through all the positions on the ballot. And if you would like to do that, and as you can look at your ballot, you might have some questions to ask. And also, Jasmine, can you talk a little bit about how people get candidate information? Like they're looking at their ballot and they see these names. Are there forums that are happening regularly? I know the parties have slate cards, which are kind of like little cheat sheets that you can go to their websites. Like, for example, if you're in Wake County, the Wake Dems has a site, wakedems.org. The Republican Party has a site. I don't know what it is, but there's a site where you can go and kind of see a slate card, and their candidates will have some information out there. But is there like a one-stop shop that's like a nonpartisan link that has all of that by the Board of Elections? I found something online, but I don't that wasn't quite what I was looking for.
Yeah, so for North Carolina, I am actually not aware of one that gives you a rundown on all of the candidates. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. So I just don't know if they haven't uploaded yet, which they probably do. So North Carolina, DMNC,
okay,
actually, they come up with what is called a voter guide every year, and they come up with one in most of the major counties in North Carolina. So Wake County has one, Charlotte has one. I just saw it.
I think I got one in the mail. I'm gonna go grab it.
Yeah, you got one in the mail. Do you want me to stop share so you can show folks that?
No, you go ahead. I have to go get it. This in the kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a hard copy. I haven't seen it online, but let me go grab it real quick and see if it has an address on it.
Last time I checked, I didn't see it online, but that was a while ago. So it may be uploaded online. I know they were supposed to upload it because of COVID, but that is one place that you can go. But honestly, the best thing really to do for me is literally just Googling these people individually. You really want to just see one, not just, when people are giving, because candidates, when you go through the voter guide, candidates themselves send in a particular, like what they want out there, like they just send in a blurb. And so it doesn't necessarily, and we know that Democracy NC is a little bit more, they're nonpartisan. However, the things that they advocate for are typically, you could say are liberal things, right? A little bit more liberal things, a little bit more liberal causes. But you really want to get a gist of a candidate, like how are they trying to appeal to their constituency? What do they think their constituency is? And you really get the best sense of that going onto their personal websites. It's really the best thing to do the work.
So this is what I got in the mail. It does say on the back that you can go to demnc.co/lookup. So on the very back, it has like 3 ways to vote in North Carolina. So I'll put that link in the chat, and it's like a little booklet. You can just kind of go through it and read up. This is a nonpartisan guide that has all of the candidates in one place.
Yep, it's really good. Yeah, it's really good. One of the best things that we definitely have had. DMNC was a pioneer in that way.
Right. So I know we're almost out of time. Are there any other questions? I know this the link that you were just sharing, Jasmine. Did you put that in? This guide is very good. I haven't seen that before.
Let's see. We actually made this. Josette made this, and that's why I wanted her to come on here. But yeah, I know we're falling short.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I know we took up a lot of space and time. Hoping that folks got what
I think this is good. I mean, we probably should have a conversation like this more often. I just want to make sure we're not missing anything. I do want to maybe reserve just a little bit of time to talk about, Jasmine, how do students, maybe there's someone who is on the web tonight, on our webinar tonight, or who may hear this later. Maybe they were a part of a protest. Maybe they were part of some of the protests that have happened here recently, and they're not motivated to vote. They're not they're feeling that it's not going to make a difference. I've actually had some students tell me that they were out at the protest and people at the protest were saying that they weren't going to be voting. So what can you tell them, or what should they be doing to take their picket signs and their protest and, hashtag BLM, all that is great. What should they be doing next if they want to influence change?
Yeah, so that is definitely a layered question, right? Because the reality of it is that a lot of people, the change that a lot of us are looking for from our government, sometimes we don't see on the ballot. Like, I'm just going to keep things like very, very real. Like, I'm not going to lie to you and say, oh, once you vote or you cast your vote, it's all going to, all your troubles are going to go away. I think that that's, it's a lie. It's not true. However, I think that it requires the things that we were out protesting for, because I was also one of those people out protesting. Like, one of the things that we're out protesting for, identifying people, like actual people, and it could be yourself as someone who can occupy space in these city and county level governments, understanding how these things work. That's why I wanted to spend so much time on looking at going through the different positions, because that's where that's where the sausage is made, right? The things where we're questioning around police brutality and criminal justice, our police chiefs, our sheriffs. Our police chief isn't technically an elected position, but you can elect your mayor, you can elect your city council members, and they can then change who is your police chief. Your sheriffs control the jails. And so understanding, not just who you're voting for, and understanding that voting is more than just at this moment, but a continuous progression to making change, and then being out there on the forefront, continuing to advocate for the issues that you care about, and pushing people who can really fill these positions and really make good decisions to run, and then also counting your vote that way. It is a process. It's a cyclical process.
Right. It's something that's always ongoing. Like right now, our city council meetings are virtual, so people can sit in on those. They can join those, and there are there are ways to advocate. Some of those groups, like if people want to get involved in an advocacy group, I listed some of those on our Eventbrite page, which I have put in the chat and we'll make available. Can you talk a little bit about police brutality and what are some of the things that may be happening in Raleigh to prevent that? And then maybe Tony, I don't know if you know about Charlotte, but what kind of things are happening, and how can people, have an impact on making sure that we have social justice when it comes to involvement with the police in Wake County?
You just want to talk about Wake County? You want to talk about the whole state?
Oh, if you know the whole state, well, go ahead. We'll take the whole state.
Yeah, for the most part, because it's just, the issue of police brutality is something that is, the way most county governments, city governments are set up, pretty similar in North Carolina. Meaning that, electing the right people in your city councils, most of your city councils are up for election in odd number years. If you know that your mayor, these positions are so important because your mayor and your city councilors are actually people that you touch. You can go to the grocery store and see a city council person, right? And understand that they're not doing the right things, making it also meaning that it's easier to fill that position with someone who can actually understand the needs of community a little bit better. Right now really is the time, especially with police brutality, to understand how city level government actually works. And continuing to be a part of some of these organizations. Like I know in Charlotte, Action NC has been really phenomenal with police brutality work. In Raleigh, it's been Wake County PAC, and Greensboro Police Accountability Group. And Greensboro, I know Beloved also has been really Beloved with Joyce Johnson. They've been like really on the ground with a lot of stuff. They approach it a little bit differently, but I know Beloved has done some really good work around that. So, I mean, just depending on where you are, a lot of these groups have really been on the ground. And if you just do a little bit of Googling and a little bit of researching, you can find your way to them, and I can be of service. But yeah, again, just like voting, like solving this issue of long institutional oppression is also going to be a process and not something that is going to be solved overnight.
Right. And also, just because I know we had the conversation, if you are able to talk about it, but there's always, like, you know, on my ballot, there is a housing bond. How do we find out the details behind a bond that's on our ballot? You know, we just have like a blurb. Do you want to vote for this or not? How do we get more information about those and what we're voting on?
So Tony brings this up because a lot of the work that I've been doing this year has been centered around housing policy. And the short end of it is a lot of counties don't really do a good job of really transparently showing you what all is in a bond package, right? What all are you getting with your bonds? Your taxes just go up and you don't really know what you get. We even had to have someone on our team research the bonds and what's been done. And to be honest with you, like, most cities just don't really keep up with, you know, allocation of said bond. Like for the Wake County bond, you have, it shows you like what, 6 buckets to what it's supposed to cover without any real explanation of like what's going on. So you got like stuff like land acquisition for housing. Right. You get stuff like actually like I don't know, like renovations, like will be covered. We'll see 20%, but you don't know what these things mean. And in short, it is like very difficult. And there are people I know in Charlotte, the Charlotte Housing Justice Coalition has been doing a lot of work with it. I work with a statewide housing group, and we're doing a lot of work. But for the most part, like, it is I've only scratched the surface of these bonds and how they affect and impact community. But really the short end of it is that you really just kind of have to get in there and understand exactly what the bonds are about and who they are servicing, right? Paying attention. Each city, most cities in North Carolina, the HUD requires that they have done a certain analysis, right, of the city and wealth disparity when it comes to housing. And so for Wake County, you can go on their website and you can look at that actual, like, okay, well, what did HUD say that you all needed this year? And you can see if, you know, if the research done from HUD says that we need to be giving money to people who make $30,000 a year, and not to, you know, giving housing to people who make $60,000 a year, and you notice that's what that bond is representing, then you know you don't really have a good bond, right? And so these are all things that you can find yourself that, you know, honestly was on their website. But people don't, but it's all, you know, camouflage and the terminology that most people wouldn't understand.
Okay, I understand. All right. So, are there any other questions? I know that we're almost out of time. Let me just kind of check the chat real quick and see if there are any other questions. Okay, Andre says, how can we join councils or city council meetings? I did put the link for the Raleigh City Council. I just Googled it. Whatever city you're in, you can just Google your city council, and most likely those meetings are virtual now, and they just have a schedule, and you should be able to join and watch virtually. And as far as the advocacy groups, I will put those on the Eventbrite site. Like I said, there are a few out there already. My Brother's Keeper is one that President Obama has. I don't know if there is a chapter in Raleigh, Durham. I know there's been one at one time. There might be, but they actually have some activities, and I know they were offering a mayor's type of affirmation, or I don't want to say, I think it was a promise what they was calling it, but some things that you can kind of request that your city council take a look at. And also it's good to go to, we'll have a link here for you to go see who your representatives are and get it and voice your opinions to them. Like everybody has a jurisdiction assignment. So in your precinct, when you go look up your voter information, you will have a jurisdiction assignment, and you'll be able to see who your representatives are and how to contact them. So, are you guys able to hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, you'll be able to contact them, and you should reach out to them and ask questions of them, because you know they are representing you and you're paying for their salary, so they should respond to you. All right. Any other final information, Jasmine, from you? Anything else?
Laura, I could talk for hours, as you can see.
I know. I think we might need to have a part 2 at some point, just to kind of get up to speed on anything else you want to tell us about. Is there anything, I guess, coming up, or an event or something that North Carolina Black Alliances have? Anything that's coming up you want to make us aware of?
Yeah, so North Carolina Black Alliance, along with Advanced Carolina, we will be, we actually are looking for people who are interested in canvassing. So if you're in Wake County, Guilford County, Mecklenburg, and I believe Fayetteville, and you're interested in like canvassing, we're just actually like safely having people like hang door hangers. You know, please let me know, or also like making calls. Like, so for volunteer opportunities, if you want to be connected, we're not paying for the calling, but you could be anywhere and, you know, calling in, and you're just reminding people to vote, and, you know, and getting to the ballot box. We are driving a lot of that. And so that's, for the most part, is, you know, what we've got. But event wise,
okay.
For Wake County, I don't think we have anything. Like, I'll be doing something, but I need more clarity on that, and I'll get you a date when I get it.
Sure, I do appreciate it. And also, too, there are some groups out there that are doing text canvassing. I've been getting a number of text messages, or maybe they'll ask if you want to volunteer, you know, based on your party affiliation, if you want to volunteer and call 20 people or something like that. So there are some ways to get involved if you want to do that. And I do see that Tony has also provided the Charlotte City Council's website. So if you're in the Charlotte area and want to go to the Charlotte City Council meetings, he's provided the schedule and information there. Real quick, I am going to share again and just kind of go over a few final announcements for NSBE. Let me grab the sharing. Oh, here we go. So just in closing, a couple of final announcements that we have for RTP NSBE. We will continue to provide social media posts. Like I said, information for our Votes Matter will stay on the Eventbrite site that you used to register tonight. If you did not register, please do register on that site, because this is what we'll be using to email out information. And also this week, like I said, this is Awareness Week for RTP NSBE. We are supporting the Our Health Matters. That's going to be our focus for October the 8th. So Breast Cancer 101 is going to be actually an activity hosted by the National Institute of Environmental Health and Science. And that is on the 8th. And then on Friday, Our Education Matters, and we're focusing on a college and career night. So high school students on up, and even middle school. If you already are looking at colleges and you're in middle school, that's not too early to start. Come out on October the 9th. That is this Friday at 6. We will start at 6 o'clock and have our college students available to talk about their experience and allow our high schoolers and middle schoolers to ask questions. And here's that information. If you would like to register for those, you can do so at nsbertp.eventbrite.com, or just go to our website, nsbertp.org, to register. Also, if you know youth who are interested in science, there is still a virtual science fair going on that's going to go on until October 31st, and you can register for that at usasciencefestival.org. And our NSBE Junior chapter does have something on display in conjunction with the NSBE DC Professional chapter. And that is it for tonight. I do think I saw a couple more questions, or maybe it was just some comments in the chat. Let me chime in on those real quick and see. Tony, was there anything that you wanted to say? Any final thoughts from the Charlotte chapter?
Want to thank everybody for, of course, coming out. Thank you for us to partner with you as well. We will have our newsletter coming out next week on the 15th, so look out for that if you are connected with our chapter. And I hope everybody have a good evening and they get ready to vote. Early voting, of course, starts next week, so head on to the polls.
That is exactly right. And we have some accolades and some thank yous, Jasmine, for being our guest tonight. I will have a virtual certificate for you. And thank you for presenting and sharing that. And there's already some requests, and they want to have a part 2 with you, Jasmine, on this. And they want to know what you know about Durham as well. So you got some homework out there. Let me see if there's anything else in the chat. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. I will save the chat. I will send out the PowerPoint. I'll stop the recording, but we will be around just for a little bit longer if there's some more questions, and if anybody wants to listen to some more of our #BLM playlist, you can join me in that as well. Everybody have a great night, and thank you for coming out, and we will officially end at this time, and hopefully we will see you on the 8th or the 9th. Take care.